CIO News. I am Pushpa Soni, your host for the broadcast and chief editor at CIO News. This is our exclusive interview series with the IT State Ministries of India. It is a recorded session and will be available on our website, that is cionews.co.in, and our CIO News LinkedIn handle. It gives me an immense pleasure in introducing my guest for today. He is Dr. C.N. Ashwinth Narayan, Honorable Minister of Science and Technology of Karnataka. Dr. C.N. Ashwinth Narayan is an Indian politician and the 10th Deputy Chief Minister of Karnataka and the current Minister of Higher Education, Information Technology, Biotechnology, Science and Technology, Skill Development, Entrepreneurship and Livelihood in the Government of Karnataka. Mr. Narayan He is also member of Karnataka Legislative Assembly, representing BJP from Malleshwaram constituency, Bangalore, Karnataka, a multifaceted personality and a firm believer of technology. Dr. Ashwinth Narayan CN is an educationist, healthcare entrepreneur, and philanthropist. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you today.
Thank you so much, Soni. It's an honor and really I was looking forward to interact with you and talk about the national education policy, which has become the most interesting and challenging area, which people have been looking forward to get an opportunity to bring in the changes in the education, the field of education, so that it is going to transform the entire education, thereby transforming the lives of all the youngsters, students, and the society and the country. So it's a great opportunity to be part of this transformation.
So my first question is, in fact, not a question. I would like to congratulate to you and to the entire state for having this new national education program and being the first state to have a national education program in India. So, so my question is around that. If you can throw some light on the national education program and what were the issues to deploy them, it would be great.
Basically, now in the new national education policy, which has been brought out after 34 years, a number of things have been, changed, have been amended, or been the new policy facilitates the real changes what is required for the 21st century and to the present time, with the changing scenario of the emerging technologies and the changing scenario in the context of the globalization and privatization. The quality of education cannot be second to none. So if anything has to get set right in the society or the country, it can happen through education only. It starts with education, as and when with the quantitative education, qualitative education needs to be given a lot of emphasis. So with regard to the qualitative education, if it has to be given to our youngsters, there are a lot of rigidity. The rigidity has to be removed, the flexibility has to be brought in, and the gap, whatever gap was existing in the present system, needs to be effectively addressed. For that, whatever required changes needs to be brought in, has been brought in this national education policy. For example, the formal education in the children, early children education is to start from the age of 6. Now it is going to start from the age of 3. It's a big change because 85% of the brain development happens in the age between the 3 to 6. It's a very important age. How much you stimulate, that is so much of benefit will be the stimulation or the learning provided in this age can make a huge impact and a huge difference. So definitely it is going to make a huge impact. A small addition is going to take a major difference, and it will be really challenging to bring in this kind of integration in the basic level. And more so with regard to the earlier, it was 12 years of education. Now it is getting into 15 years of education. And in this education, a lot of everything is to be done in a hard separations when it is to be, bringing together of science or commerce, science, arts. There is to be hard separation. Even in the curricular and extracurricular, when it is to be sports and other social activity, cultural activity, any socially impactful activity, all this is to be separately kept. Now this all become a part of the learning. Now vocational also has been integrated with academic, and this kind of flexibility in the learning and bringing technology as a core and addressing the dropout also in the education system, improvising the quality of education and ensuring the gross enrollment ratio by 2040, it should be 100%. It should become 100%. So that's a great target which has been set in. So we are working in this direction. In higher education, there was to be, as I rightly Marley pointed out, the art separation. We're trying to remove the art separation, the multidisciplinary concept, interdisciplinary concept, and with regard to the multi-entry and multi-exit system has been brought in, and collaboration and partnership with all the institutions, so that whatever limitations are there in the education system will be overcome by collaborating and partnering with one of the best institution or the industry, thereby ensuring that the children will get the best education without any limitation to bring the best out of the student. So like this, many uh, best aspects are there in this national education policy, which is really a forward-looking policy, and the complete revising and revamping of the system along with the governance and administration also. So this is going to give a lot of freedom, and in the present affiliating system, we are trying to get away with the affiliating system. Within next 15 years, we want to we are having a vision of stopping the entire affiliation system and ensure that the minimum should be degree awarding autonomous institution. So in this way, uh, the whatever learning is to happen in isolation, we are trying to end that isolation. Now networking with all possible institution and bringing together all possible players together in the interest of the students.
It's a wonderful insights and really looking forward to this one. It's a great initiative. Um, so my follow-up question on that is around the COVID times. Uh, this whole COVID situation that we are in from the last 2 years. I wanted to get your thoughts on, and the response that you've heard from the teachers and students on the digital education, and how are you planning to have transform the whole education industry, uh, and do you look forward to transforming it to completely digital, or what's your thoughts around that?
Yeah, definitely, particularly in the backdrop of the COVID-19,
Mhm.
the hybrid has come in place. The hybrid learning has come in the place. The offline and the online integration is been happening. And earlier also even before COVID, the hybrid learning was there, not in this scale. It was there in a very small proportion. Now, since the situation is very demanding, particularly in the COVID-19, it's been very challenging and demanding. Online education and digitalization of the education has become the way forward. Now entire society or the entire system is transforming from the physical to virtual. But anyhow, in education, it cannot become completely virtual. It's a collaboration between the offline and the online. So particularly in this direction, probably I am very proud and I can tell confidently in the state of Karnataka, we initiated a lot of measures even before the COVID could start. We thought of the comprehensive learning management system, internet-enabled smart classrooms, providing device to the students, so that anytime, anywhere learning can be promoted.
Right.
And in this direction, the content, the assessment, analytics, everything is being provided. We are
Right.
going to assess whatever the aim of the national education policy to have a formative assessment. See, it all starts with an assessment. If the assessment system only doesn't change, it is top to bottom kind of changes. The evaluation system has to change. So the continuous comprehensive evaluation can happen by making use of the technology, looking at the volume and the numbers. So this is all very beneficial, and even we have brought in another technology platform also, Unified University College Management System. Thereby, we do have 10 modules. It is going to comprehensively cover every aspect. By thereby doing all these things, we are ensuring that the government institution, particularly I can tell you, in the national education policy, the government institution are going to benefit immensely, because in the private education already they had started the pre-primary education from the age of 3 itself. But in the government, that was not happening.
Yeah.
When it comes to the public university, when it comes to the government institution, there were a lot of setbacks, particularly incorporating, making the technology as a core area,
Yeah.
to simplify and get the best of the best results or the impact through the adoption of the technologies. Somewhere we were lagging. Now integration of the back-to-back, whatever we do, now we are trying to integrate all the best practices in our government institution,
Right.
thereby ensuring that the benchmarking in the quality, in the terms of quality of education, it should be from the government institution, and thereby ensuring the bigger presence of the government also, and compete ultimately private or government, it should be the quality should be the main motto.
Right.
So we are completely adapting the technology to enforce and promote the quality of education to be promoted by integration of technology. Many good things have been done in state of country.
Wonderful. Awesome. I think that is great. So my next question is around the healthcare industry. What initiatives do you plan to take to transform the healthcare industry into a digital healthcare industry? I mean, what are the challenges that you faced? Something we'd love to hear from
Yeah, definitely. The e-office, we were the first people in the higher education department, ITBT, to start up with the e-office complete adoption. 100% we did it. In the government, already that platform was existing with regard to the e-office and e-governance, it was existing. But in our department, we ensured that it was implemented in toto. And we have done it. Now we are expecting all the public university to follow in line and adopt the same in the colleges, and as well as in the university, it should be 100%. So thereby, there should not be any delay. The accountability and the transparency can be promoted much more in a big way to bring in very good uh, administration and facilitating all the better things to happen in very fast manner. And along with the e-office, the Unified University College Management System is something amazing, which is going to make a huge difference in all the aspects. Let it be with regard to the student profile, performance, administration, digital evaluation, services, affiliation, all possible services will be covered here. All possible services, it will be really effective. And already we have done it. Whatever I'm telling you, it is not that it is on the paper. Whatever I'm mentioning so far, the comprehensive learning management system, probably the content what we have developed for our comprehensive LMS, will be surprised. We do already have a content of 350,000 classes, which has been already the content developed with PPT, video, audio, and all the content of highest standards contents already been developed. And already among the 8,000 classrooms, we are having now 2,500 smart classrooms.
Right.
And we have provided 3 lakh, more than 3 lakh devices have been provided. This year, again, we are going to provide more than 2 lakh devices to the students. Thereby, nothing is working in isolation. The complete digital education is in place for the complete education. And to have ultimately anywhere, anytime, education will be provided, and the content and the assessment will happen very effectively.
Great. I think it's just great to see and learn how we digitally transforming the state and our nation, India. So my next question is, what strategy should be in place to protect digital data of the government, of our healthcare industry, education industry, and all the other industries, in fact, in your state from the cyber attacks that we've seen and faced in these times? So, throw some light on that.
Definitely, now digital healthcare is now the way forward, because across even the remote place, the sub-center, primary health center, or the community health center, taluk hospital, district hospital, needs to be connected. The complete loop has to be in place to ensure that whatever required medical services, doctor consultation services, and with regard to the availability of the data, investigation, vital parameters being taken up in the respective places should be available for the evaluation or for the consultation of the doctor. To capture all those data, digitalization in sub-center level or the PHCs and taluk hospital is very much essential. So in this direction, we are trying to completely digitalize the infrastructure for capturing of the data, for the diagnostic services, and all possible things to effectively provide, and as well as for the management. Even when the resource person is not available, the remote facility can make a huge difference with regard to the ICU facility or the medical services. All possible services can be provided to the place where they're living instead of making them move around, go around, keeping in a lot of anxiety and fear.
Yeah.
Instead of there in their respective places with all the confidence, without any fear, the best possible medical care can be provided to them. This is the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister. In this direction, we are trying to establish in the state of Karnataka to ensure that the best possible healthcare should be available in any part of the state, thereby giving a lot of confidence to people. Whoever is living in a remote place, they don't have to worry about the healthcare.
Great. I think it's just great to see and learn how we digitally transforming the state and our nation, India. So my next question is, what strategy should be in place to protect digital data of the government, of our healthcare industry, education industry, and all the other industries, in fact, in your state from the cyber attacks that we've seen and faced in these times? So, throw some light on that.
Yeah, particularly in the cyberspace, the cyber security and the cyber laws needs to be strengthened. In this direction, where the government has been prioritizing. This challenge is there across the world,
Yeah.
but we need to strengthen and enforce. And with regard to the data security, anonymity will be taken care, and the data will not be shared with anybody because it is very confidential. We can't afford to do this.
Right.
The confidence and the protection of the data has to be addressed very strongly, and we are very much careful, and we are aware of this sensitivity. Definitely will not let it go. But anyhow, this big data or the data utilization needs to be done effectively in the better way with the anonymity, without sharing any personal details. We can work and ensure this will all be done in the interest of people, not for any gain. It is not for any gain.
So great, wonderful insights. So any last, best practices, any, pointers that you would like to share with our viewers out there? So anything that you would want to put it across would be great to hear.
The most important, since the formation of our government in the state of Karnataka in the past 2 years, in this tenure, we have been doing a lot of reforms in all the areas. Now, to talk about my own departments, particularly now, the national education policy, it's going to really transform the entire country. What we are looking for in a new India, the new India can happen only through national education policy. This is a solution which all of us have been looking forward to allow us to do things that is particularly to provide the right quality education. Framework has to be very flexible, and it should facilitate what are good things for each of the institution to do. We had to give them the autonomy and the freedom which was not there. And it was earlier, it was in a pre-prescribed and a rigid framework. There was not much scope for any of the institution to scale up the education system or provide a quality education. Thereby, it was leading to a lot of challenges. And institution of excellence, we had very limited institution. In the next 25 years, probably, we'll be having n number of institution of excellence. Thereby, giving a right opportunity to the youngsters to get a right quality education and with a lot of forward looking relevant with dealing with the emerging and relevant technologies and building a better future for them. Through that, it is a better future for the entire society, and we can compete with the best of the best countries who are the most advanced countries, because whatever we are doing, it is not in isolation. We are totally in the globalization and the privatization
Right.
scenario.
Right.
So we can't be second to none. The main mission of the NEP is to have the best education second to none by 2040.
Right.
So this has to be achieved. This by doing this, probably will be in the top of the world, and will be in a better place to take our country forward and to take care of the interest of all the 135 crore people. So it's a huge task, and we need to work forward. And national education policy is very good policy. And in with regard to the ITBT, one interesting uh, policy we have brought out, Karnataka Digital Economy Mission. That economy mission is first of its kind in the entire country, probably in the world, having the private and government in under one organization, where 51% of the share is given to the NASCOM, ASCHAM,
Yeah.
and I've been part of that board. 51% share has been given, and there our finance secretary, industry secretary, IT secretary, skills secretary, all of them will be part of that board. And the chairman of the board will be surprised as an ASCOM man who is the chairing the board, where the policies of the entire state will be designed and to facilitate and have a targeted investment, targeted promotion, and addressing the concern of all the industry players. Thereby, they don't have to wait anywhere else. They are now part of the government. They work closely. Industry is part of the government. Where else can we see this kind of arrangement or organization? You can't see nowhere else such a kind of organization been built to facilitate a bigger collaboration. Our honorable Prime Minister of vision of having a 5 trillion economy, 5 trillion US dollars. In that 1 trillion US dollars will be digital economy. And we at present also we have a market share of more than 30 to 35%.
Right.
At present now we do have 54 billion US dollar. If it is 1 trillion, it has to increase to the 350 billion US dollar.
Right.
Imagine the kind of scaling which we need to do. So in this direction, we are gearing up and preparing to have our lion's share. Probably, and many more initiatives have been taken up, and consistently nothing has stopped us, the COVID or anything. Our Bangalore Tech Summit has been going on. We have established many clusters across the state of Karnataka. We have digital economy mission officers across the state, and we have been working very closely and starting many of the incubators, having latest R&D policies, startup policies, and beyond Bangalore policy, new IT policy. We have come out beyond with the ESDM policy is also the best in the country.
Right.
Like this, we have been consistently working very closely with the industry to ensure that the state of Karnataka is the best place to do business and for the strengthening of the country and to be the best destination in the entire world.
Right. It's Bangalore being actually the Silicon Valley of the world, right? So
we want to be the world.
So one last question. So we've seen Bangalore as a Silicon Valley. I also wanted to understand your strategies and your plans for the tier 2 cities and the tier 3 cities in terms of employment and education. If you can throw some light on that.
Now, particularly, Sony, there's no a big city or a small city, hardly it matters now.
Right.
Particularly in the backdrop of COVID-19, I feel even a smallest village or a smallest town can emerge as the most happening place.
True.
So what we are trying to ensure and facilitate, we are not trying to discriminate any place for that matter. It doesn't matter, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. It can be the remote village. We are now facilitating the digital infrastructure by ensuring the connectivity will be the best across the state. In this direction, we have been working. Our Honorable Chief Minister also has been taking a lot of interest. And as a department also, we have come out with the telecom policy to facilitate have a single window policy to have any kind of issues with regard to the telecom, and thereby ensuring the connectivity will be provided across the state. And anyhow, talent is there across the state now. People have gone back to their respective places. Now the talent is everywhere, and they
Right.
can do things from there wherever they live now. So
True.
probably COVID will facilitate the growth in the now remote place. The bigger cities will have a lot of challenges. Will
Right.
not be the same during the COVID. Now post-COVID, during the COVID or post-COVID, the bigger cities have got many challenges, but to make it a better place to do business. Anyhow,
Right. Right.
wherever they are, we want them to be most productive people, and we need to facilitate in this direction. I just mentioned earlier, the Beyond Bangalore is an excellent concept. And what I look forward is the smaller cities, as you rightly pointed out, the
Yeah.
smaller cities will become the most happening places.
So great, wonderful insights, and it's an honor to hear your vision through CIO News, and it's a great vision. Thank you so much for joining in and coming on our platform of CIO News. It was an absolute pleasure to host you. So thank you once again, and you have a great evening.
Thank you so much, Sony, for
Yes.
having hosting the interview.